Greetings to you all on the 74th Independence Day, and a warm welcome to the panel discussion that we have on the National Education Policy 2020. First of all, I think we must introduce ourselves. We call ourselves the ELE Forum, in which ELE stands for English Language Education. Way back in 2010, we formed an amorphous group, if I may put it that way, of PhD research scholars who were all doing their PhD at the School of ELE at the EFL University in Hyderabad. And we've come almost a decade from there now. And among other things, we are a group of volunteers who I'll just introduce some of us right now. But before that, we are a group of volunteers, and we conduct various activities like this and put ourselves together, put our resources together, purely for two objectives. One is academic enrichment, and the other is professional development. So profit is not at all a motive for us, and we are completely doing voluntary work. I'd like to introduce the four of us first. Can we have the four of us on screen? Yeah, you can see Cherry Matthew Philippos on your right, top right. At the top, the bottom left, you have Sony Joseph, and on the bottom right, you have Sharon Sunny. And my name is Deepesh. So we are just volunteering ourselves as part of these ELE forums activities. Today we are quite excited to have a panel discussion with eminent people in our midst. And the four panelists are distinguished academics who have several years of rich experience in both teaching and training, and they are heavily invested in various issues connected with education, and especially school education. How we're going to go with the flow today is like this. We'll introduce the four panelists, and we'll have each of them, the four of them. All the four of them, by the way, are former faculty of the School of ELE, which is English Language Education at the EFL University in Hyderabad. And we are extremely grateful to them. They have always been our mentors, and we're grateful to them that they accepted to do this for us because it's the need of the hour, and everybody is trying to get a handle on on what to make of this new policy that has been announced. At the outset, I should also say that what we're trying to do here is to get the perspectives that the four professors who are on our panel, the perspectives that they have gained about what impact this policy will have on all of us, right? So it's going to be based on their perspectives of the national education policy. You will find the four of them make opening remarks one by one after they are introduced. And then while they're making their opening comments for about 10 minutes each, you can put in your questions in the comments section. And obviously, we will collate the most important questions that we find are necessary that need to be addressed. And you can also suggest who you want to address this question to. We'll try and see if we can put those questions to the person best suited to answer those questions. So without much ado, I hand over proceedings to my good friend Sony Joseph, who will take it off from here. And after we finish the four panelists' opening remarks, we will move to the questions. Sony.
Right. Thank you, Deepesh, for that wonderful introduction. So without wasting much time, let us go to our program. The first speaker for today is Professor Mohan Raj. Professor Mohan Raj worked as a teacher educator at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, India. He has teaching experience of more than 40 years and has published nearly 200 research papers in national and international journals. He has also authored course books and books on teaching English. He, he is a recipient of a Professional Teaching Award from TESOL in the year 2010. His major areas of interest are teacher education, materials development, and education technology. Currently, Professor Mohanraj works as the academic advisor to the Netaji Subhash Open University in developing their curriculum and courseware for the MA ELT program. Today, Sir will be speaking on the historical and overall perspective to the NEP 2020. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Soni. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad we are here this afternoon to take a close look at the National Education Policy document, which was released a little more than a month ago. In my talk, I shall focus on its origin and some of its salient features. We, as a team, attempt to share our understanding of the document and not express an opinion. Slide 1, please. Now, I shall just give a brief talk on the origin. Slide 1, please, Sharon. The previous one. The previous one. Yes, yeah. I would like all of you to take a look at this particular slide. It has on it a logo, and this logo is called the Mobius strip. This is quite unique in its properties. If you cut it horizontally, the Mobius strip doubles itself. You cannot destroy it. I think this symbol represents the indestructible character that's given to education at large. The National Education Policy attempts to uphold that. Slide 2. Slide 2. Now let's see how the policy had its journey. Of course, on the left-hand side, you see a number of names of a number of people who are part of the committee. But before that, I would like to focus your attention to what is there on the bottom right-hand corner, relevant work and knowledge base from the past. That's what I would like you to look. So I'll just say the efforts to draft this policy began way back in 2015. That time, Smriti Irani was the Honorable Minister for HRD, and the chairman appointed by her was TSR Subramaniam, who was also the Education Secretary at that time. He had a group of about 20 senior academicians helping him in drafting this particular policy. And this was ready in a short while. And this was widely circulated among a select educationists in the country. The feedback from all these people was put together. And before the recommendations could be given, unfortunately, Mr. Subramaniam passed away. So the national policy document was put on the back burner. And subsequently, when Mr. Javadekar took over as Minister for Education, the Minister for HRD, a new committee was formed under the chairmanship of K. Kasturi Rangan, who was formerly director of ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization. Under his able guidance, the draft policy was ready by about 2017, end of 2017, and this was circulated widely among a large number of people in the universities and national institutes. You can see that on the top of your slide. Discussions with educators, research policymakers, etc. A large number of groups, in fact, close to 200 different groups were contacted. And by September 2019, there was enough feedback that was received from across the country. and the draft was revised and placed to the Cabinet Committee in February 2020. This was approved by the Cabinet Committee in July 2020, and it is the present form is what we have now, is a document approved by the Cabinet Committee. Could we go to slide 3, please? The National Education Policy holds a vision which reads as the National Education Policy 2019 envisions an India-centered education system that contributes directly to transforming our nation sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society, providing high-quality education to all. The concept of knowledge society was earlier conceived by our former president, Professor APJ Abdul Kalam, and the present effort is to fulfill his dreams. Slide 4. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the salient features of this particular policy. First and foremost, the age at which a child can go to school has been brought down to age 3. Earlier, it was age 5, and now children can join the school at age 3. For the first 3 years, for children, it's almost like a play school where they'll be familiarized with language and language use, and it's largely to build a rapport with the teachers, friends, and develop a set of social skills. This is what all the children have to do. So for the first 3 years, of course, they learn a lot of language, and they get familiar with literacy and numeracy, but not so much into reading and writing. So these first 3 years are critical years. They are called critical years, and that's taken care of. Then the children also finish the first and second year of school, or this constitutes the first 5 years of school, and up to the age of 11, which is called the primary stage, children will have a comfortable journey through the school where they don't have to do any homework. It's just not necessary. The entire system of education thereby gets streamlined into 4 stages: 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. The first 5 years constitute primary education. The second 3 years also are part of extended primary education. The next 3 years, that is classes 6 to 8, is called the middle school, and 9 to 12 is called the high school. In the last stage, the high school and the intermediate, the present intermediate or pre-university, gets integrated. 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 provides for what is called in the document a pedagogic alignment to assess the students at various levels. There are examinations given at the end of class 3, class 5, class 8, but not in a very serious manner. But this is only to ensure that whatever has been designed and desired as part of learning outcome has been achieved. It is not very much like a public examination, but it's some sort of a centralized examination to help the learners become familiar with the art of taking examination. The curriculum will be more comprehensive at the school level, and there will be the emphasis on any individual subject is not highlighted. All the subjects become equal. So they will study science, social studies, mathematics, languages, sports, as well as music. All these subjects are given equal importance. Along with this, as they enter class 6, informally they will be introduced to vocationalization or something called specialization, but this is in very informal way. And as they get into class 9, the vocationalization becomes formal, or they can choose their stream of study and they can continue with their specialized stream for 4 years, such that they get a firm foundation to enter a professional course. This is about school education. When they get to college education, the college education also becomes fairly integrated. Most of the degree courses, most of the courses in colleges will be 4-year courses and not 3-year courses as of today. This provide, and also this system will have multiple exit and lateral entries. I'll have to explain what this means. Multiple exits will be available at the end of second semester or all even semester, second semester, fourth semester, sixth semester, and obviously the final exit is in the 8th semester if it is 4-year course. Lateral entry will be available in semester 3, all even semesters, semester 3, semester 5, and semester 7. What does this mean? Means if at the end of second semester I feel that I have to take up a job and give up my course, I can, and I still get a certificate in whatever course I have been doing. At the end of fourth semester, I get a diploma. At the end of sixth semester, I get a degree. At the end of eighth semester, I get an honors degree. This is the system that I have done. And if I leave the college in between and want to join a college elsewhere, if I leave my course at fourth semester and want to join fifth semester after about 2 years in a different place, my credits will be portable, or my credits will have the same value, and I can join any college anywhere in India. Credit portability becomes a reality. Along with this, an attempt has been made to make CBCS, or choice-based credit system, a practical thing, which means there will be a range of options to choose from, and education will become really, really liberal. Means a student of science need not do all the courses in science. He or she, if he or she prefers to do a course in music, that will be available. So the courses which carry credits, the total credits, out of the total credits, at least 50% of the credits will be core credits. Another 30% will be part of what is called discipline specific electives, and the last 20 credits will be general electives, where they can choose courses from any field that they choose, they like. So it need not be linked to the discipline or the core course that I have been doing. Apart from this, the colleges will have greater autonomy, and this autonomy is given in terms of administration, the academic inputs, as well as finances. However, how the criteria for deciding to give autonomy will be thought of in a little later. At present, autonomy has been guaranteed to almost all the colleges. Now, teacher education is also going to be integrated with the rest of the colleges, which means we will have what are called comprehensive colleges. So the teacher education, which will have to focus both on content as well as proficiency as well as professional competence, will be a much better thing. This is something that's already been there in regional colleges of education, so regional institutes of education run by NCERT. That model will be replicated across the whole country. As a result of this, some of the standalone institutions, which are single disciplined institutions, may cease to exist. But there will be an exception made to institutes like Indian Institute of Science, Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management, some of the medical colleges, etc. But the rest of the colleges will all be called comprehensive colleges, and we will have a different type of a system. Apart from this, there are some new things that are being brought in. One, I am just going to mention 3 things. A large database of all the teachers available in the country will be created, and this is something most essential. So if there is a surplus teacher somewhere, and if there is need for a teacher in some other place, probably finding a teacher in a college where there is which is understaffed will become very easy. It will be true of schools also. Exactly similarly, a national research foundation is also going to be established, which is going to pool all the research that happens in the country, so that a database is maintained to see that duplication of research does not happen, or if there is the same type of research that is happening in 2 or 3 places, these researchers can be collated such that uh, the research gets strengthened. And the third major institution is National Assessment Council, about which I will not take much. ICT will become integrated and blended learning will become a reality in future. With this, I stop. Shall we go to the last slide? Not fifth slide, you can skip, and the last slide, where I want to simply say thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for introducing us to the historical and overall perspectives of NEP. The next speaker on our panel today is Professor Paul Gunashekhar. Um, Professor Paul Gunashekhar has taught English, trained teachers of English, and developed instructional materials for English language teaching for over 43 years. Educated in Bangalore and London, he was a professor in the Department of Materials Development, Testing and Evaluation at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. Having served the university as a proctor, Dean of English Language Education, the Dean of Publishing at different times, he retired from EFLU in October 2017. Professor Gunashekhar has authored, co-authored, and edited over 250 English teaching books, including course books, workbooks, supplementary and literature readers, teachers' books, and reading cards for national agencies like NCERT, CBSE, IGNOU, Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapeeth, Rajiv Gandhi Central University, and the list goes on. Professor Gunashekhar has conducted over 1,000 teacher training workshops in India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Tanzania. He has presented papers at conferences and symposiums in the UK, Holland, Japan, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Nepal, apart from India. He has several research publications, notably the Directory of ELT Research in India, and edited the EFLU Research Journal Languaging. Awarded the Commonwealth Scholarship for ELT Research in the UK, Professor Gunashekhar specializes in materials development, course design, teacher development, and English for specific purposes. He is an advisor and Indian English consultant to the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary and the Oxford English Dictionary. Over to you, sir.
Happy Independence Day. Friends, I have a simple plan for my brief presentation on curriculum. I'll begin by referring to the sense in which NEP 2020 uses the notion of curriculum, then position curriculum in the larger educational process, follow that up with the highlighting of the most significant curricular principles that the policy recommends, and conclude with a reference to the curricular content that syllabus designers and materials developers should take into account. What is curriculum? Ted Rogers gave us a working definition in 1989. I quote, "Curriculum is all those activities in which children engage under the auspices of the school. This includes not only what pupils learn, but how they learn it, how teachers help them learn it, using what supporting materials, learning styles, and methods of assessment, and in what kind of facilities." Unquote. In other words, a curriculum is a carefully curated document that includes all the opportunities for learning that a school provides. This is the broad sense in which NEP 2020 uses the concept. Now, where does curriculum figure in the complex overall educational process? Let me simplify it by listing the different stages in operational sequence. At the head of the process is the National Education Policy, whose overarching responsibility is to both draw the contours of national educational development for the foreseeable future, as well as specify the common goals towards which the nation should navigate using education as the primary vehicle. Generally, the policy document is prepared by a team of professional achievers who have distinguished themselves as persons of educational eminence. The preparation of the document takes place under the benign guidance of the government of the day. Once the policy document has been approved by the government, the development of a national curriculum framework formally begins. Spearheaded by NCERT, a team of educational experts of repute flesh out the ambitious recommendations of NEP largely in terms of four elements: aims, content, methodology, and evaluation. It is at this stage that the more visionary aspects of NEP begin to be tested in terms of feasibility and plausibility. Curriculum framework is then handed over to teams of subject specialists for its translation into full-fledged syllabuses for the teaching of the different subjects in the school curriculum. As Henry Wooderson said, 1990, the syllabus specification is concerned with both the selection and the ordering of what is to be taught. The educational program implementation is well underway when the syllabuses reach the relevant departments in NCERT and SCERTs and institutions like AFLU for their realization as teaching materials and corresponding assessment instruments. Program implementation stage comes to a logical end when NCERT, CBSE, and SCERTs conduct orientation programs in the use of the new materials and assessment strategies. The concluding but crucial stage in the educational process is the classroom implementation stage, where the teaching materials, aided by the new assessment pattern, become what we call teaching acts and learning acts. The key questions to be asked at this point are: 1. Will there be a significant transmission loss as we move from the recommendations of NEP at the top down to the classroom? Question 2. Has there been teacher participation in stages 1 to 4, and to what extent? Right. Now, what are the central tenets of the new school curriculum? 1. Learner-centeredness and learning-centeredness. The policy strongly reiterates the widely held belief that curriculum development should put learners first, recognizing and building on their knowledge and responding appropriately to their needs. In other words, the curriculum should justify itself in terms of a genuine concern for the learner. What Prabhu, way back in 1985, in a conference in London, called a concern which reflects the teacher's sense of social, ideological, or educational responsibility for his client. There is also a clear indication in the policy that learner-centeredness should lead to learning-centeredness, where methodologies proposed encourage learners to select their learning modes, use one another as learning resources, negotiate learning content with the teacher, and generally take responsibility for the management of their own learning. 2. Creativity and curiosity. The policy suggests that learners need to be urged to think, formulate, and express their own ideas, opinions, and feelings, rather than be coerced into implicitly agreeing with or converging on their teacher's views all the time. By extension, teachers will be required to create learning spaces where the ideological mantra is divergence and not convergence. 3. Intellectual and emotional development. The policy believes that the curriculum can enlarge human capacities of the learners by creating platforms for chiseling their intellectual and affective responses to issues of concern like gender inequality and environmental degradation. Holistic development is possible only when schools build avenues for the interplay of the mind, the heart, and the body. 4. Self-dependence and autonomy. The policy reflects the prevalent belief that the only certainty in the world today is changingness, and that the foundation of lifelong learning is the ability to learn how to learn. So teachers should be trained from an early age to take responsibility. Learners should be trained from an early age to take responsibility for their own learning so that they can move smoothly from a marked dependence on teachers to autonomous study. 5. Local and global identity. The policy strikes a fine balance between a national identity that is firmly rooted in Indianness and global citizenship. The curriculum underlines the inherent pride that emanates from acknowledgement and appreciation of our Indian ethos, but cautions us about the risk of cultural isolationism. Kumaravadivelu captured this conundrum in a lecture he gave at EFLU in 2013, and I quote, "One's cultural growth should be rooted in one's own cultural traditions, but must also be enriched by an ability and willingness to learn not only about other cultures, but also from other cultures. Learning about other cultures merely leads us to cultural literacy. It is learning from other cultures that will lead us to cultural liberty." In conclusion, what's the basic advice that the policy offers to syllabus designers and materials writers? First, the emphasis should be on cross-curricular learning and integrated teaching. That is, school subjects are combined into learning areas and taught thematically. Second, in terms of themes and topics, textual content should reflect the uniqueness of India's heritage and what we now call Indian knowledge systems, multiculturalism, and social pluralism. The aim is to develop national materials with a local, regional flavor. And third, materials should advocate constitutional directives like inculcation of a scientific temper and removal of social barriers, universal values like compassion and courtesy, and ethical conduct, or what the policy defines as doing what's right. Doing what's right. The goal is to produce fully rounded students who can be models of decency, decorum, and dignity. Here are two questions for you to think about. One, can a curriculum be completely neutral and without bias? Question two, what I've presented is what you might call curriculum as plan. What's going to happen to this blueprint when it becomes curriculum in practice? Curriculum as plan, curriculum in practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful and insightful talk on the new school curriculum. Right. Okay. So the next speaker for today is Professor Geeta Dureirajan. Professor Geeta Dureirajan retired from the Department of Materials Development and Evaluation at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. She has published many articles in the areas of pedagogic evaluation and enabling language capability in grassroots multilingual contexts. She is a series editor for a new series with Cambridge University Press, England, all about language teaching, a set of teacher education books written specifically for SARC country teachers. She is the author of the first book in the series, Assessing Learners, a Pedagogic Resource. Professor Dureirajan's recent publication, Perceptions of Language Pedagogy, comprises a series of articles written by Professor N.S. Prabhu. In today's program, ma'am would be discussing assessments and the role of languages in the Indian classroom with reference to NEP 2020. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Paul started, I'd like to begin the same way. Happy Independence Day to all. And in one sense, I'd like to say it's as though we are saying independence from assessment, inclusion of languages in this policy document. So I'm going to talk about two things. I'll begin with assessment. Now, across the document, there are three different decisions which have been taken at different levels. One, and the most important which I'd like to foreground, is that this policy document says that the major focus will be on teacher assessment in the classroom. This is notwithstanding the new agencies that have been set up and other work that needs to be done. Now, why am I saying this? What are my justifications? The new education policy, first of all, I'm just making two quotations, must re-establish teachers at all levels as the most respected and essential members of our society. Second, it says that the focus should be on regular formative assessment rather than summative assessment. And they want to take away the coaching culture. Now, and then there is this big talk of the three prepositions that go with assessment, which we all know is normally assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. Now, what is happening here? They've begun with assessment as learning. And then they've said assessment for learning, last of all, assessment of learning. So the focus is going to shift to self-assessment. Then the third point, nature of progress cards, holistic, multidimensional, capture progress and uniqueness. And look at the order. Again, self will include self-assessment, peer assessment, progress of the child in project-based and inquiry-based learning quizzes, role plays, group work, portfolio, etc. And then they say, along with teacher assessment. Again, in another place, they say, the primary purpose of assessment is for learning. And now, here comes in what we call program evaluation to help the teacher and the student to revise teaching and learning. Now, what does this mean? That in a very, very big way, assessment is being made a part of the teaching learning loop. This is crucial. And then, of course, you do need checks and balances. So to track national level progress, there will be school examinations like a public exam, or that's not very clear whether it's a school exam or a public exam in classes 3, classes 5, and classes 8. And this will go in line with saying students can exit when they want, they can come in when they want, and they can leave with a certificate. Okay, this is as far as teacher-based assessment is concerned. I'm moving to something else where a major statement being made, the nature of board examinations to be completely revamped. A, choose the subject that they want to take their exam in. B, more options to redo exams in a school year. And what is absolutely beautiful is the best of 2 attempts will be taken, and the possibility of annual, semester, modular board exams. This means that the policy document and all the people who thought about it have genuinely recognized the tension behind stress and behind public examinations and what it means to a student. We've had parents tell us, oh my God, final exams, I must take leave. I have to coach my students. It's not only the children who go through tension, so do all parents. What is the third big change? New agencies or centers for assessment. One, the establishment of not NAC as an NAAC, but National Assessment Center and Performance Assessment Review Analysis of Knowledge, which is PARAKH, PARAKH, as a standard setting body along with boards of assessment, NCERT, SCERT, and then a national testing agency for entrance examinations. Now, why is this needed? What is this going to do for us? Mohan Raj spoke about exit points at different levels. If we don't have these agencies, we can never establish equivalences across the country, across colleges. Enough of my students are sitting and listening who've come and begged me, ma'am, I have something from Kerala University. Please tell me what is the equivalence here. Enough of them know enough of the problems. We need these agencies. Only then are we going to be able to say we can have credit portability, movement, and still say we are on par with the rest of the world to be able to say, yes, study where you like, move somewhere else, continue studying, and get your degree. Okay, I'm going to stop with assessment because I have one more area to work on. Can somebody tell me whether I'm overshooting time? Okay, no answer.
No problem, ma'am. Go ahead.
Fine. Okay. Role of languages in the Indian classroom. What are our base assumptions in the document about languages? Couple of statements I'm going to read out, which is A, the need to promote multilingualism and to recognize the power of language in teaching and learning. What does this mean? It means that we have to understand all content is taught through a language or one or more languages if possible, and therefore language becomes a powerful tool. At the same time, there is a need to respect diversity and all the local contexts in curriculum, pedagogy, and policy. The third input that they've taken in the document is that multilingualism has cognitive benefits. At the same time, two, I'd say cautionary statements which have been made, which have to be made. The three-language formula, whether it works or not, will continue, but with flexibility. Then, the last one that we have to remember is that education is a concurrent subject. It is, decisions can be taken by the state and by the center. Okay, with these points, that is, promote multilingualism, respect diversity, cognitive benefits. What are decisions taken? A huge step has been taken, which I would see as desirable and not essential, is that the medium of instruction until at least grade 5 or even grade 8 and beyond will be the home language, the mother tongue, the local language, or the regional language. Then they said there will be a bilingual approach, and then use multilinguality as a resource, not necessarily as a mandatory medium of instruction. Now, it seems as though this is contradictory. At one level, we've got a statement that says till class 5 or grade 5 or grade 8, mother tongue medium instruction, home language, local language. Then it says not mandatory. Why is this? This is because education is a concurrent subject. The center cannot impose medium of instruction to be the regional language on any state? A. B. CBSE has already stated in newspapers that they cannot follow this policy because they will have students transferring from one state to the other. ICSE is probably also going to come in and say, we can't do this. But there are many places, there are many contexts where children will benefit if they are taught content through the mother tongue, because knowledge of a word, knowledge of a world begins with that first language. However, having recognized that mother tongue medium instruction may not become mandatory, the policy goes on to say, can we therefore think of bilingual textbooks? Then a very, very crucial feature that I found was that there will be a quote unquote fun-based project on language in class 8 to help children recognize, understand, appreciate, and value other languages. Then they say language should be taught as experiential learning. I'm coming to the end. I have just a little more to be said. Now, having said all of this, I'd like to ask, what do we mean when we say bilingual textbooks? Use multilingualism as a resource. We need to stop apologizing and avoiding. We need to stop looking at, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm using Tamil in the English classroom. I'm using Telugu in the English classroom. The use of the mother tongue in the English classroom, I've always said, is like a white lie, cannot be avoided, cannot be advocated. No, we need to be able to say this, and it is not only with the language classroom. Content, education is not about teaching languages alone. Education is about content. And in the conveying of knowledge, in helping children come to terms with their knowledge systems, we have to take on and value what they already come with. And for that, we need to use multilingualism as a big, big, big resource. It could be the first language, it could be the home language, it could be the more enabled language. We're not bothered. For most children in India, this is crucial, this is important. If we don't do that, we're going to land up finding our children are not able to make sense of what we are teaching them in school. Now, having said all of this, this is at the level of, as Paul and Mohan spoke, educational planning, which has already been done. And what we've got is a policy document. What we need is pedagogy and practice. And for pedagogy and practice, that is where I think, not only in teaching, I'd like to now link assessment with role of languages. We need to start, and I'm going beyond the document and looking at possible pedagogic practices. Can we think of bilingual tests? Can we think of asking our children to answer in their more enabled language to know whether they have understood? And stop saying, you can't speak, you can't write, therefore you don't know the answer. They do in their languages, and we need to value that. Teach them across languages, test them across languages. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geeta ma'am, for that wonderful and insightful, thought-provoking session on the role of languages in the Indian classroom. Our last speaker for today is Professor G. Rajagopal. Professor G. Rajagopal has taught English and trained teachers of English and developed instructional materials of English for over 41 years. Educated in Bangalore, Hyderabad and Scotland, he joined CIEFL, which is now EFLU, in 1978. Having served at EFLU as Vice Chancellor in charge, Registrar in charge, and Dean of the School of English Language Education, he retired from EFLU in May 2013. He is a member of the Karnataka State Textbook Committee and the Department of State Education Research and Training, DSERT, Karnataka. He is also a member of the National Academic Advisory Kendriya Vidyalaya Sanghatan, MHRD. He was a chairman, core committee for the preparation of a position paper for teaching English in India, an NCERT Government of India project between 2012 and 2013. He is also a member, Board of Studies for English at several Indian universities. Professor Rajagopal is a multilingual specialist, expert in ELT theories, and practices with a strong research interest and expertise in the role of mother tongue in the teaching of English. He is also a specialist in the related areas of ELT, such as TESOL, ESP, phonetics, spoken English, communication skills, testing, assessment, etc. He is a well-known teacher trainer, helping teachers of English, especially those with a dominant L1 background, cope with problems in teaching English in rural and urban setups in India and abroad. He has authored and edited several books, articles, and research papers in the area of ELT. In today's discussion, Sir would be focusing on NEP 2020 and its implications for classroom teaching, including teacher education. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, everybody, and greetings for the new year, Independence Day. Today, I propose to focus on the teacher, the classroom, the teaching methodology, and some of these issues which arise from the National Education Policy 2020. This is probably the crucial and most critical feature and the factor which is bound to affect education in our country in the coming days. The new policy has several implications for many of us. The teachers being the primary actors in education, we have to see very serious implications when it comes to the teacher's role, the teacher's performance, and equally important, the teacher's skills. Now, if we try to understand the implications of the document, one of the factors that will strike us with respect to the teachers is to ensure that the teachers, and as a consequence, the learners, the parents, the society by and large, everybody should feel comfortable. This is very crucial. There are going to be lots of changes in the system. And if changes are going to take place, then everybody gets worried, panicked. How do I fit in this changed system? So, let's quickly look at some of those significant changes. Foremost, as Mohan Raj referred to it some time ago, we have a new system of school education, the 5+3+3+4 system. And education is going to start, education by the way, is going to start from 3 years. When the child is 3 years old, the child gets into the Anganwadi and then goes on with 3 years of education, and then the class 1 and 2, and then go on with it. I'm not going to talk of that. But I want to draw your attention to some of the changed focus that the policy tries to talk about. First and foremost, Hereafter, at the school level, and mind you, not just at the lower level, but right across, the teacher's focus hereafter shall be on enabling the child to learn on one's own, in the sense that the child should progressively learn to depend on herself or himself in its learning. In other words, that skill or skills related to learning on one's own need to be developed in the child. Learn to learn. Something we have been talking for quite some time, but now it has become a reality, and it's going to be a bigger reality very soon. Which means in the class, the emphasis shall hereafter be on creating tasks, activities. Now, the teacher should be able to do that. The teacher can no longer simply lecture or paraphrase the lesson, tell the story. None of those things. In addition, the policy also suggests that hereafter teachers should develop certain higher level skills, such as, for example, critical thinking, creative discourse, observation and analysis, ask questions, answer questions, learning to be experiential. What does it mean? This means many things, and the teachers have to understand all these very carefully. It means they must develop in the children not rote learning, not just repeating what the teacher said, and the teacher is satisfied with that. No. It means hereafter, the teachers should ensure that children's critical thinking abilities are developed. They begin to think critically. Creative discourse. In the classroom, therefore, there will be discussion. And that will be creative, which means the teacher allows the children to come up with their own ideas. In other words, the teacher has to create an environment where she or he who is teaching in the classroom shall encourage learner participation. Observation and analysis. The teacher will ask such questions which encourage them to observe, to analyze, and to come up with their own brilliant ideas, and so on and so forth. In other words, both these factors, that is, the teacher's own knowledge of the language, the teacher's ability to teach, and enabling the learners to learn, will have tremendous demands on the teacher. It will have very deep implications on the teacher's classroom teaching methodology and techniques. It will also have tremendous implications on the teacher's training, which means on the trainers, which means all those courses where the teachers undergo training, they will have to orient themselves to not just project the content, but also the new techniques. Enable the teachers to understand what it means. For example, if you take a very simple thing like enabling children to ask questions and answer questions, which means in the training program, the trainer must enable the teacher to learn how to ask questions and what questions to ask and how, when, of what nature, so that it elicits an answer from the child. It's not just the child listens to the question and says, yeah, 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 yes, 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 yes. No, it's not that. The child has to answer, to respond. So those skills which enable the teacher in turn to perform successfully in the classroom, to enable children to do all this critical discoursing and so on and so forth, will have to be developed in the teacher. Imagine our country and the teachers who are spread all over the country, and their good old textbook based teaching methodology. The focus is on understanding the text. If you know the text, that's the end of knowledge, which is not the case hereafter. Read aloud by the teacher, translate and paraphrase and finish, and tell the children, look at those questions and learn their answers. And I'll dictate the answers, learn them. And those are the questions which will come in the examinations, will no longer be the case. So it will have tremendous implications on the teacher's teaching, which means that the classroom has to be very vibrant. It has to be active. It has to be participatory. Children will participate. Learner participation will be a part of the classroom. So also teachers' questions and learners' questions, teachers' answers, learners' answers, and so on. Plenty of oral activities in the classroom. So what is the role of the teacher? He will not just be a teacher conveying the content, giving them the idea of the content, the details, but he will also be a facilitator. One who enables or makes learning to take place in the classroom. So, which means the teacher should possess many more skills of teaching hereafter. Now, one of those things which is related to learners becoming critical thinkers, self-dependent, all these things, is that learners also begin to observe the teacher and the teacher's teaching. And in turn, they are supposed to pick up many of those skills. Mind you, giving them a choice of vocation and so on at the end of class 6 and again at the end of class 8 will mean learners will have to develop that critical judgment in themselves. What will be my interest? Not just throwing open the subjects to them. No, not just that. It means that the children should also be able to understand all those subjects and be able to choose many of those things. So eventually the learner should be able to perform all that the teacher does for them. And that is the kind of self-learning, self-dependence that is aimed at eventually. And so the question now is, are teachers ready for this? There is no problem with learners. Learners are ready always. They can learn anything you teach, anytime, ask them to do whatever you want. They are ready. But are teachers ready? So the implications will necessarily go back to the teacher and the teacher's abilities, the teacher's own proficiency in the language, fluency of delivery and so on and so forth, and also the teaching skills in relation to the classroom teaching methodology, which also adds several features of classroom teaching management. Hereafter, the teacher cannot say that 35 minutes are not enough for me to do. No. Mind how you divide your 35 minutes or 40 minutes is your issue now, but ensure that the classroom atmosphere is going to be totally different. And mind you, when children from different groups having different subjects, not just these fixed subjects that used to be there so far, no, they will have many other subjects. And when they come into the classroom and sit in your classroom, the teachers must understand that this is a different kind of diversified type of classroom. It has children from several knowledge sources. It's diversified, expanded knowledge, and so on. So the teacher has to be aware of this. If early education is through the mother tongue, the local language, the local dominant language, or whatever, in addition to English and other languages and things like this, the teacher has to be ready with that also. Teacher's own knowledge of the mother tongue is very important. How do we choose the mother tongue? Do we choose a dominant language? If a child comes from a Tanda, and the child comes into the classroom bringing in the Tanda language, that won't work. The teacher may not know that language. Teacher may not know the child's language. And so that's another issue that the teacher has to be ready to face. So the local dominant language or the regional language or whatever it is. Also the child's language. Teachers might be posted here and there to different schools. The policy says, okay, the teacher has to use the mother tongue and also develop skills. You see, the awareness that we are building into the teacher to know what she or he is doing, how much of it is being learned, and how well it's being learned is the new thrust of this. Well, all these can be achieved, and there are any number of teachers who have done all these things and who are ready to do it and who can do many of these things. Give them any task, they will balance everything with them and so on. It's not impossible. But a teacher's professional standards, a teacher's professional knowledge, a teacher's professional portfolio will now change significantly. That's what I want to say. And therefore, the teacher needs to pick up new skills, new type of knowledge, and work on the teacher's own knowledge of the mother tongue as well as the knowledge of English and so on and so forth. And basically, then a teacher's overall professional profile will now change. And that should happen. And that's what the policy envisages, to create a teacher who can create a band of children who will think differently, who will act differently, and who will be totally different type of people. Thank you very much.
Yeah. First of all, let me thank all the 4 professors for taking on their role or their part or their aspect of the NEP 2020 with great elan and moving through the entire territory in 2 ways. One, in a broad way, making sure that they cover everything, and providing as much depth as is possible within the allotted 10 to 15 minutes. In fact, it's amazing that the 4 retired professors, we almost coerced them in many ways to put on headsets and earphones and all that, adjust the light and all that. Amazing stuff. I mean, I think we must really express our gratitude for all that. So we have a set of a whole lot of questions from many people. So what we're going to do is we're going to project some of these questions. We're going to have all the 4 panelists on screen. I'll try and see if I can also, if the question per se does not mention the panelist that is preferred, then I'll direct it to the panelist who I think might be best suited to answer that. And we'll go like that. Now, here we have one question which is specifically directed to Mohanraj sir. It says, the light but tight regulation of higher education institutions, isn't the term self-contradictory in the sense that it is light on one hand but tight on the other, in the sense probably that it's regulated but it's not regulated? Mohanraj sir, would you like to take that question?
Yeah. In order to respond to this question, I'll have to go a little beyond NEP. The higher education institutions, a new type of curriculum is being framed, and this is called LOCF. LOCF stands for Learning Outcome Based Curriculum Framework. Now, what does this really mean? Light but tight means you are within the system, but within the system, there is a lot of liberty that you can enjoy. CBCS is an example of that choice-based credit system. You have a large option to choose from, a large number of courses to choose from, but while choosing them, you have a set of restrictions. For example, over 8 semesters, you cannot compromise on the number of credits that you have to earn. That's one. Okay, so that's the tight part of it. Light part of it is that there are more than 100 or 120 courses, and you can choose only about 30 or 40 courses out of these 100. That is light part of it. Second, the light part also should constitute what is the discipline you are following. Within that discipline, do you have adequate exposure? Without that exposure, you cannot choose a large number of general electives. If you choose only general electives and not the core subjects, then the course will have no meaning. In that sense, it is light. So you have a choice for to pursue your course, yet you can also do some of the courses that are outside your course, which is for your own pleasure. Like this, there are a large number of options that are given. Also, the possibility of multiple exit and a lateral entry is also light on you, but when you seek admission in 5th semester or in some other college, do you have the necessary credits that you have earned during the 4th semester? That's the tight part of it. So this is a combination of a relaxed atmosphere giving you a lot of liberty, yet within the framework of a curriculum. That's how it is understood, or it has to be understood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Veena, and I forgot to mention the previous questioner's name. Sorry. This is Veena, and her question is directed to Paul sir. Sir mentioned that materials should have a local flavor. Two questions. First, wouldn't the local flavor restrict the knowledge of the students if they're not exposed to other cultures? And second, won't the syllabus designer without a cultural background of the learners be unjustified in designing a syllabus for the students? I'm reading this out for the benefit of those who are not able to read it on the screen. My apologies for that. Yes, Paul sir, would you like to take those two questions?
Okay, let me try that. Okay. One of the things that the policy very emphatically says is, all things being equal, NCF 2021 now, I think, will be the guiding force for curriculum development, syllabus design, materials development, and assessment instrument production, right? In other words, what they're saying is, we would like states, because they have the freedom to modify the general guidelines issued by the center, do so in terms of a balance. Don't forget that there is something called a national ethos, and keeping that in mind, try and adequately accommodate issues, stories, to take genres which have a clear local appeal. So to put it differently, when textbooks get written, they generally happen after the syllabus maker has provided a set of guidelines. Now, what the NCERT has been doing in the past is prepare a list of themes, for instance, class-wise, which they expect will guide the textbook writer for that particular year or stage, right? So very specifically, they'll say, this is an adult theme best dealt with in a secondary school textbook, right? Now, if that is the case, there is a problem, and which is what I think Veena is referring to. we want our children. Now I'm referring to the distinction between Indianness and global citizenship. If we want our children to be Indian and yet global in outlook, then there is a problem, a challenge for textbook writers in particular. How do we do this? Quite simply, we apportion a part, a percentage, as it were, for what we see as core Indian themes, which must figure. And within that, very often, we also accommodate what is specific to, let's say, Mizoram or Andhra Pradesh or Telangana or Kerala, whichever state we might be working for. And balancing that with the need for children to be aware of comparable reading material being written and being made public elsewhere in the world, right? So we can't simply stay with something that is completely Indian and shut our children off from what's happening elsewhere. Neither can we return to, let's say, the 40s and the 50s when indigenous textbooks were not available, where Indian school children ended up studying material that was actually very, very British in nature. My early years in school actually were spent assimilating pure English British material. So we expect syllabus designers and materials developers to be particularly sensitive to this need for balancing what ought to be there in terms of Indianness and what should also figure in our materials in terms of an international flavor. I don't know whether I've answered Veena's
Yes,
question.
you have, but I think Veena was specifically referring to various regions. But I think what you said about India and the world also holds good for the various different subcultures we have within the country.
Yeah.
So it's a very relevant response. Is the present system of teacher education well equipped to meet the objectives of the NEP? What could be the major areas of focus for teacher education, and what changes need to be brought in? I think it ties in neatly with what Rajgopal sir was referring to. This is Paresh Kumar Bhoy's question. Would you like to answer that, Rajgopal sir?
Oh,
Or
yeah. Okay.
would
Okay.
anyone else?
So
Because all of you are teacher educators anyway.
we are all teachers.
Yes.
In the present system of teacher education, is it well equipped to meet the objectives of NEP? Well, it's a question of gradual understanding. It should not take much time for, like, just as you're hosting an analysis just now, there will be similar sessions of analysis further. And I'm sure in course of time, many teacher education programs will orient themselves to include many of these features that have been highlighted here. What could be the major areas of focus for teacher education and what changes need to be brought in? Mind you, primarily, equipping the teacher to understand some of the implications which are present in the new policy, such as I highlighted some time ago, encouraging children to become independent learners. It's not easy. Encouraging children to ask questions, it's not easy. These are very tough tasks for the teachers. And so, yes, there will be plenty of changes that need to be brought in course of time. We can see them and take a look at them slightly later. Yes, but changes have to be brought in.
Yes, sir.
No.
Next question. Should the content of teacher training be localized?
Yeah,
Would
yeah. Mohan, would you like to
Mohan
take
Raj,
it?
sir?
It is. Should the content of teacher training be
I'll unmute
localized?
your mic, sir. Yes.
I'm not very sure if this question is properly framed, because the teacher training is in itself cannot be localized. Teacher training is a proficiency. It's a professional competence. The professional competence that we give you, or as teacher trainers that we give you, should enable you to handle any material. So the teacher training is always global. It cannot be localized. I'm not very sure if that is really true. Okay. However, if you want an answer on with the help of teacher training that I have received, can I teach English to tribal schools, children in tribal schools? If that is your question, I would only say yes, it should be possible, and we can have some fine tuning that can be done with some specialized teacher training programs. Otherwise, I don't think there is a need for localizing teacher training. Thank you.
Yeah, that question was Panchanan Durya's question. I forgot to mention that again. This is from Achievers English. Are the teachers well prepared or trained in terms of the materials or methodology to meet the challenges of the NEP 2020? I think.
Deepesh, can I come in and answer that?
Yes, Geeta ma'am.
Because I want to take up 2 points. One mentioned by Rajgopal when he said, yes, see, the question was, are they equipped and trained? Right. And then the other question was about localizing teacher
content.
education. Right. And now again, are they trained in terms of methodology? Now, I will go back to Dr. N.S. Prabhu for this, where he said, look, once teachers begin working with tasks, he said, along with their students, the teachers will grow. Now, in a similar manner, yes, there are going to be changes in our teacher education courses. But beyond that, see, it's like how 5 years ago when we came in and we said English medium schools. And we said, we cannot wait until we teach all our teachers English to help them to start teaching. They will learn with their students. In a similar manner, maybe they won't be well equipped. I disagree there actually, because all teachers have the potential. They want to teach. What they need to learn, they learn as they go along. Right. And about localization. Now, yes, it cannot be absolutely localized, but I would like to disagree with Professor Mohan Raj when he says it should be global. We don't need a teacher education program in India to help our teachers to go and teach in England, USA, or Australia. Our teacher education programs must be local, but local Indian. Thank you.
No, I think Professor Mohan Raj.
I'm just taking the point further. I know.
Probably when he said global, I think he was referring to the fact that you prepare teachers in teacher training for a context beyond the local context that you cannot envisage a local context purely, and then the teacher might have to go beyond that and improvise on the basis of. But your point is well taken, that teachers they learn as they go, and then depending on the situation of their teaching, they also learn along with their teachers. Absolutely. Professor Durai Rajan, here's your question, Geeta ma'am. How is, this is Dr. Ganga Mehato. How is an organization like NCRT, which you referred to in your talk, going to manage the prescription of the mother tongue till grade 5 in the context of parents' pressure, politicians and political pressure, public schools for English as the medium of instruction, etc.? In the light of those pressures, how do you think an organization like NCRT can manage the prescription of the mother tongue till grade 5? I think you answered it in some way in your talk.
Yes, I already referred to this in my talk. Now, I cannot be quoted officially as saying this won't happen, okay, because this is my personal view. But as I stated very clearly, remember that education is on the concurrent list. In Tamil Nadu, the Chief Minister has already said, we are going to continue only with a 2-language formula. We don't want a 3-language formula. NCERT actually can only suggest that something happens. Prescription of the medium of instruction for government schools stays with that particular state government. For private schools, beyond a point, prescription is not likely to happen. There is any one of you who have taken up a job, I mean, all of you who are working know the difference between essential and desirable qualifications. Now, they are saying mother tongue medium instruction is desirable, not mandatory, not essential. The day after the NEP came out, Professor Kasturi Rangan came onto the newspapers, and there was a lovely, I think it was a write-up by him or an interview where he said, we are not prescribing, we are suggesting. But that is newspaper evidence, and this is Geeta Dorerajan personal statement. Please don't quote me on this and say I'm making all kinds of statements about NCERT. I can't do that. Okay.
You're on YouTube. You're on YouTube, and everybody has heard you. We have videographic evidence. No, I'm
That's
just
okay.
pulling your leg.
I know, I know.
The next question is also for you, ma'am. Dolly Dhawan asks, she wants to be enlightened on how bilingual teaching can help the teachers' objectives. In terms of
our objective as teacher. I think that will have to be answered based on the kind of class you're teaching and the board of education within which you are teaching. If somebody is an ICSE teacher, that person is going to have advantaged English knowing students, parents who read, parents who provide a lot of material in English. They are going to come with background knowledge of English, and you have good English medium, quote unquote. You have English medium schools with children who know English. You don't need, in that sense, if it is English, the bilingual program. But I would suggest that they do bring in the other languages to enrich those languages as well.
Yeah.
By contrast, if you're teaching in a context where you have loads of first generation learners, then we will have to be able to take into account what they know in their local languages and bring that in.
Yes.
So one system fits all cannot work in a diverse country like India. Thank you.
Yes. Paul, sir, would you like to take the next question? Though it's not directly concerned with what you said, but I think it ties in more with the aspect that you covered. Where, in comparison to what the Kothari Commission recommended, okay. Yes, sir. Don't we need to address the challenges that came in the way of the realization of that policy before we implement the new policy, they say? Yeah. Kopi Krishna's question.
Well, then we'll have a move forward. No, that's not the way education happens anywhere. I think all major commissions of education post-independence have said at the time they were presented absolutely the right things. Now, interestingly, this NEP 2020 has a small little paragraph on the previous education commissions and policies. And one of the things it says is the implementation of previous policies on education has focused largely on issues of access and equity, which I think is still the basis for the operation of the new policy, right? We want inclusive education. We want access to all educational opportunities, and we want this notion of equity to be established quite transparently across the board. It goes on to say, the new policy, the unfinished agenda of the National Policy of Education 1986, modified in 1992, is appropriately dealt with in this policy. So they actually are acknowledging the immense contribution made by the P.V. Narasimha Rao committee. I should call it committee. Commission. He was the MHRD minister there, and largely it was under his guidance that the policy was prepared. People sometimes simply refer to it as the Rajiv Gandhi policy. No, it isn't. I think Narasimha Rao had a lot to do with it. And the NLP graciously, I think, acknowledges the fact that a great deal of work has already gone into the preparation of the previous policies. So where there is unfinished agenda, we'll address it. And they also acknowledge the fact that one of the most important developments post 1992, in fact, before the current government came to power, has been the right to right of children to free and compulsory education act 2009, right? So let's not forget the immense contribution RTE has made to the spread of education in India, particularly the insistence on 25% of seats being reserved for the underprivileged, the economically weak students in class 1. How the new policy is going to accommodate that in terms of the Anganwadi system and the prep school, etc., I'm not sure. But you can't not have that particular part of RTE ignored.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a question from Dr. Ganga Mehto again. How are Indian teacher training institutes going to develop the required skills in the teachers who have little or less interest to change? I think that's a question. That's an enduring question. Every teacher training institute will always find, irrespective of the policy. But I'll request any of you teacher trainers, teacher educators to take that up.
Okay, I'll take
Okay.
it.
Very quickly.
Sorry,
sir.
Raju, please. No, you are.
No, the point here is that, for example, when e-learning was suggested, now TBLT, for example, when all these were suggested, you think the teacher training institutions were sleepy? No, they had to take it up. They had to treat it as an important factor and deal with it appropriately at the teacher training institutes. Now, if a trainee does not like it, he can as well go out. Okay, throw him out. So that's not the issue at all. He can't continue in his profession. There's no way. And therefore, no such thing can happen. The new thrust areas will be introduced, will be talked about. There will be a new approach to teacher education, and the teachers jolly well learn it. As it is, they will have problems otherwise. So, yeah. So that's all. There's no escape from this.
Would Paul sir or Mohanraj sir like to add anything to what Rajgopal sir said? Like a police.
After them, I'd like to add.
No,
Yes,
I just want to add to what Rajgopal said. In fact, Professor Paul Gunashekhar gave a beautiful flowchart where he talked about process and the actors. I think the same thing can be extrapolated to teacher training. Now, whenever there is a new policy and new teacher training that becomes essential, it's not that we just ask them to go and do something new all of a sudden. There are going to be a large number of programs that will be planned. Okay, and this type of trainer training programs will be in place. Exactly, I think the flowchart that Professor Paul Gunashekhar gave was excellent. And the same thing I would like to extrapolate and say that NCRT probably might become the master trainer, and all other colleges of teacher education, CTEs as they are called, can become the nodal agencies, and these nodal agencies can take up several other training programs. I think Dr. Ganga Mehto is part of NCRT, and he would probably be planning some strategy like this, and I think this is possible. And Each time there has been a new policy, the teacher training, trainer training has also taken place, and now also it will happen. Certainly it will happen.
Professor Paul, sir?
No.
No.
Doesn't matter. No.
Geeta
They've
ma'am.
answered it. Thank you.
Okay. See, this is again to answer this question about how, can you give me that question again from Dr. Ganga ma'am,
Sharun?
Professor Ganga Mako? Is that possible? Something about how will the Teacher Education Institute cope, and because they are refusing to change. Now here
Teachers
I'm
have
going to
little or
talk
less
as
interest to change. Yes.
Yeah. No. See, very clear. I am an evaluator, and once our test patterns, when we start testing differently, everything else will fall into place. Very simple. Second, washback of good testing on teaching. CLT did not work for us, but once we say there's project, there's this, there's that, automatically they will start learning. And why do we assume that all teachers are indifferent and don't want to change? What percentage of teachers are indifferent? What about the tribal teachers sitting in remote corners in single teacher schools who are doing excellent work? Why don't we value and celebrate and appreciate what they are doing, rather than always talk about the 10% or the 20% who, according to us, are indifferent? I'm sorry, there's a perspective here.
Yes,
A, if
I
testing
think
changes, teaching will change. B, let's value those who do change, and the others will automatically start changing. That's it.
Yes, I think we need to be a bit more optimistic here, vis-a-vis especially when we're talking about policy, because it's an ideal. The policy envisages the ideal, and we have to sort of work around the practices that surround it and make it more realistic. Before we go to the next question, though it's projected here, I would like to check with all the four panelists, our teachers, whether we can go on for a little while more. It's 4:45 now, and we if you do have the time, can we go for a few more questions, or do you think we should wind up? I'll go completely by your choice.
Up to 5 o'clock.
Up to 5,
5
Rajgopal
is fine.
sir says. Yeah, Geeta ma'am also says fine. Mohanraj sir?
Yeah, fine.
Paul
Yes.
sir?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think it's very, very kind of all of you. So we'll go for the next question. Englishify yourself. That's a very interesting
Exactly.
interesting name. Yeah, the state of Andhra Pradesh took a decision to introduce English medium instruction for classes 1 to 6 in government schools, despite the policy's suggestion and severe criticism from experts. Is that justified? Would any of you like to take that? In the light of Geeta ma'am, in the light of
Yes.
English,
See,
in the light of
I
languages
think-
in classrooms. Yeah.
Yes. See, the question, who is asking this question? Am I on? Okay.
Some.
Who
Yeah,
is
you are
asking
on.
this question?
Yeah.
What is the
English?
evidence based on which we are asking, is it justifiable? Okay. A, as an individual, if you ask me, should this happen? I would say no. Because with all our first generation learners, we are killing the ability to help them and learn about the world through the language they are most comfortable in. But with the power and pressure of English, this is happening. So the justification will have to come, unfortunately, only with evidence. It happened quite a few years ago. Can we then take a look at how many children have come through English medium instruction? How good are they with their content knowledge, with their subjects? If we get that information, then we can go back and tell that government, look, what you did was a mess. Please change. If let's say they've done very well, we take the evidence and we say, all right, what can we learn from what AP did? How did AP bring in English medium instruction? Was it purely English medium instruction or so-called pseudo-English medium schools where transactions happened through the more comfortable, the more enabled language? We need evidence.
Yes, you said we. It would be wonderful if you say who we are.
The we ought to be NCERT, the policy document people. It's NCERT which should be taking up a big project like this and getting evidence. Not Geeta the individual, not EFLU as a university. Okay, NCERT
Yes.
and SCERT.
Yes.
Okay,
The
go on to the next question.
yes, Ranjit
Paul or
Kumar's
Mohan or
question.
Raju.
College of Teacher Education is offering 2 methods in B.Ed courses. If a single method is offered, what happens? 2 methods? I'm very surprised.
Single, you see, single method.
Rajgopal sir.
We tried with single method some years ago as B.Ed English, for example, at EFLU, which is not an issue really. It's not much of a problem doing that. But when it comes to 2 methods, oh, there are more options now. You see, when so many courses are on offer, hundreds of courses are on offer, and it's likely that children are going to take up so many different subjects, including vocationalization and things like this. In the B.Ed colleges, naturally there will be 2 subjects will mean so many options available for the trainee teacher, and so there will the two methods option will continue, and there will be more choices, which simply means that as the policy has stated, you see, if education or instruction is not available in one college, the trainee or the trainee teacher can do it in another college where this is offered. This is number one. Number two, if college A offers, let us say, 25 courses, and college B offers only 5 courses, college B will be strengthened to offer more courses so that many of these children can go to those colleges also. And so that way, the policy suggests that colleges will be equipped and to ensure that more options are available to the children. And so I think the 2 methods will continue, and there will be many more options. Not just, not just having mathematics and physics, no, English and history. No, not just that. Now it may be many more. Thank
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The next question is also for Rajgopal sir. Thank you very much for throwing light on the role of the teachers. I'd like to know if only empowerment of the teacher can materialize the policy. What about infrastructure in
You
institutions?
need both.
Of course, yes. Everything has to be strengthened now. But to my
Vijaya
mind,
Sahu, sorry.
sorry, yeah, that's okay, Vijay. Everything has to be strengthened now. See, for example, if I am the principal of a college and suddenly I'm asked to introduce 30 courses, now I'll have to introduce it. As Paul said, you see, the curriculum will change, the syllabuses will, and there will be more of autonomy to my college, which means that I have to find the faculty and I have to offer all these courses. So the infrastructure has to change. And they have ensured, the policy ensures that there will be many teachers who will find appointments. So lots of teachers, including teachers of arts, carpentry, smithy, many of these teachers will suddenly find jobs. And so the colleges will have to expand. There will be more inclusive, and many such opportunities will be available. And so, yes, it will change.
Yeah. Can I just add?
Yes, sir, Paul sir.
Policy actually, towards the end of the document, talks about the provision of funding for the new kind of infrastructure that will be required in the changed scenario. And one hopes that the budgetary allocation, which is now 4.6 of the national budget, will become 6. That is something that all governments have been promising without being able to do it. And this government too is going to have a problem providing 6%, largely because of the unexpected recession that has been set off by the pandemic worldwide. But if there is more money available, oh yes, that a part of that can be reserved for necessary, essential infrastructure in training colleges and educational institutions.
Thank you, sir. Jashobanta Nayak has a question about the policies They come and go by the passage of time, but our classroom still fails to produce what it's expected to do. Where's the gap, and how can it be realized in action? Directly to Paul, sir, I think that summarizes what you're saying and what you're going to say now. Yeah,
Yeah,
please, sir.
I don't know. I remember I used the term transmission loss, right? And that is something that happens in all educational systems. I think the visionaries design a plan, as it were. It's a wish list, but by the time it comes down to the actual classroom, a lot of it has already been diluted, right? This is in the nature of education, right? Unless you have autonomous education institutions, as some European countries have experimented with, where schools actually design everything themselves for themselves, right? But in a country like India, we're going to have this centralized, come regional participation in the educational enterprise, and we have to hope for the best. Between the four of us, we've mentioned so many variables, right? We have to get most or all of them right to be able to say, at last, we've come to a point where we can say we have succeeded, right? So don't give up hope, right? Stay optimistic. Things will get better, I'm sure, as the time goes by.
So everybody who's dealing with curriculum is by nature very optimistic. Veena has a follow-up question. We have different states here. I think this is what Monraj sir was referring to, and I think Paul sir was referring to, and we discussed this, that it's in the light of the various regional cultural differences within India. So we have sorted that out. This is Nataraja Sridharamurthy's question to Professor Rajagopal. Rightly, sir laid emphasis on teacher training and teacher's role, and says thank you. So it's a comment and not a question. So I thought it was a question. Yeah.
Appreciation.
It's a comment, yes. Can there be a special program for the parents to enable them to, Ajit Thakur, to get them acquainted with the new way of education? I think that's beyond the realm of what we are doing. We're dealing with teachers and teachers.
Can I
Yes,
just
Paul sir, yes.
Remind Mr. Thakur that there is a reference in the early education section about parents being educated, within quotes, in how to handle children at home up to the age of 3, right? And it also talks about support for parents who require some kind of initiation into dealing with toddlers, right? That's probably going to be questioned, that whole idea. Why can't children just be left to themselves, at least for 3 years, right? Let them do what they want, let the parents let them do what they want. But there is a reference to avenues for parental participation in early education.
Yes.
Yeah, the PTAs,
Sorry.
PTAs are going to be strengthened. Plus, there are going to be some sort of orientation programs. This is something that has been suggested.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Yes.
how
Yes.
effective it is going to be is something we see.
We had other forums where we asked for questions, and we got several questions at different forums. So I would like to pick up one question asked by Professor Anand Mahanan, and since it's dealing with languages, I'll direct it to Professor Geeta. Geeta ma'am, would you like to answer this? The question is, in the 3-language policy, only major languages are included. Can children be given education in non-recognized languages, including tribal languages? What's your take on that? I think you're mute. I'll unmute you. Ma'am, would you like to unmute yourself? No.
Unmute.
Yeah. Yes.
Clear? Yeah. See, way back in the 1990s, we had home languages discussion in Mysore, and even then what they were saying was, if it's tribal languages, create textbooks in that language for that particular district alone. You don't need to bring tribal languages into the schedule. Okay, and we don't need the whole state to have a textbook in that tribal language. You have different pockets. And perfect, somebody who's a first generation learner from a remote tribal area, it's going to be so daunting. I'll take Anand's example. If the language, not even Kui is much more common. We'll take one of the tribal languages in Orissa. Now, for that person, Oriya itself, Odisha, if they call it itself, is going to become an alien language. So yes, initial 3 classes, 5 classes, as much as you can, teach in that local language. And then also teach Oriya, also teach Hindi if needed, and English. The more languages a child learns, the better they will be cognitively. Anand, after having read Professor Mohanty's work on multilingualism, shouldn't be worried. I think I've answered that.
Yes, you have answered the question, and I think probably he was referring to the fact that it's not only a reference to the major languages, but it's a reference to mother tongue in general. I think he wanted to raise that question, and that's why it has come up. He had another question that was for, I think he directed it to Paul sir, but I think any of you can answer that. This is in the context of, I mean, this is Professor Anand Mahanand again. Since B.Ed now is envisaged to be a 4-year course instead of the 1 or 2 years that it currently is, will colleges have adequate staff and infrastructure to make good use of those 4 years, without which it will be a waste of time, he says. So I think partly some of that infrastructure and those kinds of issues were already taken up, but if you would like to add anything to that, any of you, that would be nice.
I'll take it.
Yes, sir.
Actually, Anand, this is the 4-year program is an integrated program, and it will be part of what is called a comprehensive college. Okay, all the colleges will be called comprehensive colleges. B.Ed college will not exist as a separate college, and B.Ed program is not going to be a one-off program. It will be part of the regular college course. So what happens is, the same faculty that is teaching science will also teach science, and somebody who is specialized in methodology will teach the methods of teaching science. So you don't need to have extra faculty, the other faculty. So a science college has science faculty. Along with that, there will be 1 or 2 teachers who can be specialized in methodology, who will also join the same college, and they will give a BSc B.Ed course, or a BA B.Ed course, or a BCom B.Ed course. Exactly the same pattern that's being followed in regional institutes of English, which is started by NCERT. The same thing will continue, but in a larger scale in almost all the colleges, and these colleges will be called comprehensive colleges. That's what the document says.
Yeah, can I just add one little point there? The document actually says specialist educational institutions will be phased out.
Yes.
Right? Education will become part of multidisciplinary universities. Right? All universities now, and not now, will eventually have departments of education, and what we call government colleges of education may not simply be around after 20 years if this government has its way. So this appears in the second half of the document, particularly for higher education. So I suggest you take a look at that.
Yeah. In fact, in 10 years, 2030 is the cutoff year.
Oh, okay. Okay, I forgot.
2030 is the cutoff year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think we have a whole lot of many more questions, and I think it's 5 p.m. now. So I'm going to use my discretion and not take any more questions. I should say a big thank you to the 4 professors for their amazing patience and for taking us through the finer details of all of the NEP 2020. And also, please, for all the participants who are here, there is a feedback form which is there on your comment box. Please go ahead and have a look at the feedback form. Whole lot of comments which are from former students of the 4 professors saying regards to so and so and so and so and that. You can, you can just browse through those. I think there are a million comments of that sort, compliments and thanks and all that. Meanwhile, there's also a feedback form which is going up on the comment. So please feel free to fill those forms. The reason is not as a feedback for the 4 panelists here. I think they don't need any endorsement from you, but it's the larger purpose of the feedback form is actually for us to be able to add you to our mailing list for any of the programs that we conduct in the future. So that's the larger purpose of the feedback form. So please feel free to put in your comments and your email ID in the email address in the feedback form. And of course, your comments and healthy criticisms are most welcome. What a wonderful session, says Sarvani. Thank you very much to the professors for the insight and so on. Thank you. Mahananda says thank you. Yes, Paul sir.
Before you wind up, on behalf of the panelists and everyone who sat through the panel discussion, thank you very much, Deepesh, Sharoon, Soni, and Cherry, for having organized this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Paul sir.
Yeah,
thank you, Geeta ma'am. Thank you, Rajgopal sir. Thank you, Mohan Raj sir. Thank you very much for
thank you.
your time
Thank
and
you very much.
contribution.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Deepesh.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Sony.
Bye.